Hey guys, today I'd like to discuss the prompt, what does it mean to be wise? I think that being wise is, instantly what I think is the comparison between being wise and being knowledgeable. I think being wise specifically is you have an accumulation of ideas and accumulation of concepts and topics and yeah, and the way that these are retrieved are through lived experience and lived data. So we often think of an archetype of a old wise man, and I think the, this archetype is very indicative of my understanding of the definition of wise, because in order to be wise, you have to have accumulated a considerable amount of, I'm tempted to say the word knowledge over many years of living, and that's the way that you've retrieved the data to be able to take with you into everyday life. Now, going back to what I said before and how this relates to knowledge, being knowledgeable, I think I think you can be knowledgeable through experience, but I think the definition of knowledgeable extends to unlived experience as well. So you can read a bunch of things online about an experience, about I don't know, for optimizing your diet, for example. You can read about protein, carbs, and fats, and the importance of different micronutrients, and it it will tell you, and online it will tell you about different studies that have found out how different things work and how they make people feel, etc. But you can't necessarily completely understand the way that, I don't know, eating a nice juicy steak every week or two, and how healthy that makes you feel. And I think that is an example of wiseness. If someone were to say, "Oh, I read this study, and this study told me this. I read that study, and that study told me that." It doesn't have the same kind of it doesn't have the same kind of pizzazz or certainty that someone wise telling you the way that a steak makes them feel, or this make the way this makes them feel, even if it goes against what a knowledgeable person says from a study. I'm not saying that the wise person is more accurate or inaccurate, or the study is more accurate or less accurate. I'm simply saying that the 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 way that someone who's gone through an experience of something can come out the other end and explain their experience and explain the intricacies of how it makes them feel carries more weight on an emotional level than if someone were to display a bunch of facts regardless of if they're true. So I feel as though, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel as though being wise can often be kind of infantilized as a kind of be all end all, and a kind of appeal to authority to a wise person because maybe they're old, or maybe they do have a lot of lived experience, that therefore it is more reputable and accurate. I think I think appealing to the authority of a wise person is a recipe for disaster, and doesn't capture the lived experience of a whole population of people like a study or a statistic does, no matter how less infantilizing, no matter how less invigorating, no matter how less pizzazz it has, as I said earlier. So I think, to wrap this up, the bottom line is wiseness comes from experience, knowledgeable comes from accumulation and consumption of data and statistics, but neither of them are necessarily more accurate than the other. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.